Hello po. Good evening to all of our friends and families in low carb feasting and fasting community, also in our members of Life Without Rice. So right now, yung Life Without Rice natin, medyo dumadami na talaga. I think we are already almost 180,000 in members. And also, our original low carb feasting and fasting community, medyo dumadami na rin at around, nasa na ba tayo? With our LCFF, I think we are reaching about 14,000. So for those of you who are not yet familiar, I am Dr. Josephine Grace Rojo, also called the Diet Doctora, because I promote actually and I maximize the effect and importance of the nutrition through our natural diet. So if I believe that medicines are there to help when dietary modifications are no longer effective. But personally, in my practice, I don't just rely on medicine. Sometimes I give medicines like supplements, some kind of supportive medicines, but the treatment itself usually will come from nutrition, from proper food intake. So our topic for today is about the low carb. LC stands for low carb, since we are promoting actually low carb and not high carb. So low carb tips and tricks for the busy bees. So I think, one of those, especially that we came in a little late right now because we don't want to say no to our patients who's actually been bumped off, no? They know. Alam ng mga pasyente natin yan, that they're supposed to be here, they're supposed to have their consultations previous day, but since it's really fully booked, so we kind of bumped them day after another, and I hope we were able to finish all of them today. So, medyo na late po tayo, but as our duty comes first and everything else can wait, but it is also my duty to share with you my time during Wednesday, and that is to share with you the tips and tricks for the BCB. So, you can see that I post my foods every now and then in Life Without Rice and sometimes in my own page. But it's not actually all the foods that I eat. So, mostly, kasi pabalik-balik lang naman yung kinakain namin, so we are actually not into posting almost everything that we eat. It's just that most of the time, yun lang. So, ayaw namin maboard kayo. And also, if you can see in our Life Without Rice timeline, the food items there are somewhat varied. Not because we are really choosy, but we are there to help others make this life sustainable. And when it comes to sustainability, we really have some kind of variation. So, the food tips and tricks that we will teach you now are the ones that are affordable, the ones that can be easily done. So, madali lang siyang gawin. Anybody can do it, even as early. I think I started cooking when I was still in elementary school. So, kahit basic lang, basic saute, basic frying. And since we are actually not very afraid of fat, so we fry our foods, no? Although, of course, moderation is the key, as what I usually tell my patients. For those who think that I'm really into high-fat diet, yes, I love fats even before I discovered that low carb and high fat is okay. Even if the standard idea is fat is bad, me and my family are actually very fond of eating fats. So, hindi yan mawawala sa akin, especially now that I know that it's not scary, that it's not really a bad thing as long as you don't pair it with carbohydrates. But to make it safe, what I usually tell my patients, that even if pork fats are not that dangerous, although eating so much eggs is seldom too much, but there is also no evidence of real benefit when eating too much of it. Okay? So moderation is the key. So just like we have to be fair. So just like glucose is non-essential, cholesterol actually is also not that essential. Okay? Because our body can create its own triglycerides. Our body can create its own LDL. Our body can create its own HDL and its own VLDL. It's just that we need certain types of fats that are essential. So I think we tackled that last episode. So omega-3, omega-6, and omega-9. So we are thinking of omega-6, mostly the most abundant would be our fish oils. Omega-6, although essential, so when we say essential, we know we cannot make it on our own, so we have to take it from external sources. But omega-6 is a no-brainer. because almost all fats that we consume will contain omega-6. So there's, I think, no record of a person having deficiency in omega-6 because it's everywhere, even in the nuts that we eat. So even if you're vegan, even if you're plant-based, or you're full carnivore, seldom will you see a person having deficiency in omega-6. In fact, the problem that we have now is we are having too much of omega-6. What we need to have is a balance between omega-6 and omega-3. And omega-9, I think the most easily acquirable omega-9 that we can have, and also somewhat economical, would be extra virgin olive oil. So it's rich in omega-9. So usually, olive oil, omega-9, any oil, especially the ones in our safe list, and omega-3 for our fish oil. So again, I will get our food list here so that we can focus, okay, on our tips and tricks with our low carb for the BCBs, okay? So this is our primary source. So whenever we say that we need our low carb preparation, so it's always on the safe list. Some kind of caution list might be acceptable, but we have to be sure that whenever we take them by its name in caution list, so we really have to be very mindful whenever we take them. It's not just we take them without thinking. It's not just whenever we take them unlimited style, buffet style, okay? So that is what important. So we have to go through with this one by one. And so after that, we can make our preparations. And of course, we can ask help from our veterans here. So I can see a lot already. Mostly, I'm so happy that a lot of you are here, the future classmates and participants of our low carb and fasting masterclass starting this Saturday. So we have Malu, we have Inday, we also have TP. So I know, I haven't checked the full list yet, but I know those you three are surely gonna join. So I'm so happy that you are here, okay? So for those of you who haven't registered yet, especially yung mga minamahal, all of you here, Anna Marie, Sumaya, also of course Annabelle, I hope you can really, and of course my dear Chloe, our moderator in Life Without Rice and LCFF, also classmate natin yan this coming master class. So, what I usually tell my patients is go over through this list. Kasi, whenever they seek consult, they have all of these complaints. Say, for example, I cannot fast because I usually get hungry every 2 hours. And sometimes, I cannot afford to eat earlier in the evening because by 8 o'clock, my stomach is growling. I cannot sleep without eating. So there are even those who are having, aside of course from those with known illnesses like diabetes, hypertension, fatty liver, elevated cholesterol, what else? Elevated uric acid, SGPT, what else? Yung mga common favorites. Others will have elevated creatinine, BUN. Others already have heart findings like cardiomegaly. So cardiomegaly is an enlargement of the heart, and as much as we want to think that we have a large heart, but having a large heart that is not appropriate for your size is actually a risk for heart failure. But I'm not scaring those who are diagnosed with cardiomegaly, as long as you are now going to take the necessary step in order for you to not further put burden in your heart. And burden in your heart will be the added blood pressure, the thickened blood because of too much cholesterol in it that are not being used, the inflammation in your system, the infection that you cannot deal with because you have high sugar. All of those will have its toll in your heart. So you have to be careful. So what I usually tell my patients is, as much as I want to hear all of your complaints, each and every one of them since time immemorial, but sadly, somewhat, although those are important and those are relevant, but actually, those can just be lumped up as the usual and expected outcome of people having the balanced diet. When the idea of balanced diet is a little of everything. It's just like It's just that we have to understand that there's so much everything. So if you can consider a fruit and a root crop and a bread and some rice, and then later you'll eat some desserts, and then you'll have fruit juices or cola, and then a little chocolate, and then a little fat, a little butter, a little chicken, a little meat. So a little of everything will equal to so much, especially if you're eating at least 3 times a day. So a little of everything, and the idea of balance and standard diet is very, very scary unless you are in a controlled laboratory setting wherein a nutritionist is doing it, and every day for the rest of your life somebody is preparing your food with proper computations of macros, and even that actually is somewhat faulty, especially if it's already the person having manifestations of poor sugar control or poor tolerance when it comes to sugar and insulin effect. So we have to emphasize that, because some people will show that they have good sugar control, but they are manifesting effect of too much insulin in the body. And what are those? What are those too much insulin? Those are the extra fats that you can't seem to burn. Those are the extra cholesterol that is increasing in your blood. Those are the gallstones that doesn't move. Those are the inflammation, the pains in your joint. Okay? It's the pain in your back. It's the chronic headache that you cannot seem to understand where it's coming from. It's the chronic hyperacidity. It's the GERD. It's the abdominal pain that you don't know where it's coming from. So it's all that. Those are part of inflammation. Even the mere fact of being forgetfulness, okay? Being forgetful. It's like an early onset of dementia. Of course, we don't want that, but we have to accept that those are one of the common outcomes of a high carbohydrate intake, high sugar intake. That's why in the Philippines, especially our elderlies, although some of them really can live quite long, but you can see their memory is declining. So I have my Lola who's already 80 plus years old. I think she's going 86, but she can no longer recall anybody. Okay? So those are the things that even if she is alive, but we cannot really say that she is living. Okay? So that's another story. It's just that I want to emphasize that Filipinos, Asians in general, and Filipinos most especially that we are Filipinos, may not have that strong evidence of obesity, of overweight issues, especially in our elderlies, but we have a very high degree of diabetes, heart attack, and also Alzheimer's or dementia. Okay, so those are all evidence-based related to too much sugar intake. And whenever we say sugar, we have to emphasize, especially for our new beginners, newbies that are watching right now. If it's your first time watching this live, hello to you and welcome. I'm sorry that your first time to watch is quite short because our time is quite limited. We had a full book today. But whenever we say sugar, it's not just the sweet table sugar, but a cup of rice is equivalent to 10 to 12 teaspoons of sugar. A slice of bread is equivalent to 4 to 5 teaspoons of sugar. So if you're avoiding sweets but you're not avoiding bread, try to consider how they become what they are the moment it enters in your blood. And that is already still the same glucose that won't differentiate if it's coming from your honey, from your cocoa sugar, from your maple syrup, what else? From your pancake syrup, from your molasses, muscovado, brown sugar, white sugar. All of those sweeteners will still become glucose or fructose, which is worse because it can be directly converted into triglycerides, which is fats. So again, moving on. So before we proceed to our tips and tricks for the busy bees, we make sure that whatever we prepare, it's not the ones in the danger list, because the problem and the common excuse that we have is that they cannot start a healthy diet because they're busy. Like I know some, they're living in a condominium unit, so they don't have a helper to help them. Both of them are working and they don't have time to prepare. They're always ordering. So I always say there's always right food to order. Okay? So as much as it may seem impossible to order a food that is completely low carb, okay, We understand because we don't know what they're using, even the flour, even the flours, even the breading, all of those. But it's also important to note that it's also very hard to see a food list completely high carb. You will always have an option. So even if it's just egg, that's low carb. Okay? So even if it's a burger, so you can take out the buns, you can leave the patty, you can leave the cheese, you can leave the lettuce, and you can still eat the burger without the bun. So as much as it is important and ideal to have basically a mostly low carb and healthy low carb meals, but living realistically that all of those may not be that available, at least you know what you're looking into. So first, the danger list, you make sure that you are avoiding the ultra processed foods, which would include pastas, pastries, chips, desserts, ice cream, especially if they're not generally low carb, if they're the regular ones. Candies, breads, baked products, French fries, corn chips, potato chips, and all of those. So those are processed foods, especially those that are sweetened. So whenever it tastes sweets, you really have to double check what are they using. Is it brown sugar? Is it cocoa sugar? Is it agave, honey, corn syrup? Whatever it is, if it's a sweetener, it is still a sweetener. One of the artificial sweeteners are aspartame, so those are not really the best ones, so try to avoid as well. So for the oils, even if I love fats, we have to be selective what kind of fats we are taking in. So always a no-no, margarine, seed oils. And seed oils, I think I have been into too many Facebook debates and arguments with comments when it comes to canola oil because people will not let go of their canola oil. So I will leave that to them. Okay, if you are using canola oil and you've been using it for years and you love it, so I will not tell you not to use it. So it's up to you. But it's just that if you have to choose and if you have the option, you're better off using refined, even if it's refined coconut oil. And refined coconut oil will not have a coconut aftertaste. Okay, you have to know if you're not familiar with that. Take it from someone living in the Philippines who have 50% of the oil available in our local market are coconut oil or coconut based, and they doesn't have any tinge of coconut scent in them because they're refined. So there are different kinds of oil within a coconut oil. So there are just few oils that are really carrying the aroma of coconut. But refined oils, MCT oils, are actually devoid of those aroma, of those oils that has aroma. So you can safely cook all your favorite foods without having a problem of having coconut as one of its aroma. Okay, margarine and also shortening. So shortening, the ones that are making the baked products, baked products hard and somewhat good and with a consistency that makes them really good and highly addicting. But that's also what makes them the worst because baked products is mostly composed of sugar, flours, and bad oil. So that would be shortening or margarine because margarine is like less than 50% less when it comes to cost as compared to butter, but its taste is somewhat similar. It can have the same creamy, butterlicious taste. Yes, they usually love to put the butter name in the margarine. If it has a label with butter, but doesn't put their butter only, so it's really not butter. It's just margarine. It's like the creamy taste of butter. So that's not butter. It's just the creamy taste of butter. Butterlicious, butter blend, buttermilk, butter, what else? There's so many of that, so be careful. And another, I think someone, I'm not sure how 100% true is this, but they say when one seemingly looking like butter, but if the wrapper is made of paper and not aluminum or not real water resistant and oil resistant covering, it's usually margarine. It's not really butter. Yeah. So, and of course, the worst drinks, we used to think it's just soft drinks, but we can actually add to that list the beer, because beer would still lead to both carbohydrate and alcohol. Also fruit juices, okay? So the fruit juices, even if it's, you think it's a pureed fruit juice, so imagine a single apple can give you around 10 to 15 grams of sugar, and you can hardly finish a whole big apple. But if you convert that into a juice, that's just one third of a cup of juice. So if you have to drink a pure apple juice, you are somewhat taking the sugar or the fructose coming from 3 or 4 apples. And can you imagine finishing apple that is 4 pieces in just 30 seconds, as if you are drinking a whole apple juice in that amount of time? So drinking or juicing your natural fruits and foods are really the worst thing that you can possibly do. Unless, of course, that's the only thing that you eat. So that's another story. And if that's the only thing that you consume, of course, you can live with that, because you will be consuming all of those because you're not eating anything else. And I think the updated list I'll add it here. Milk teas. Why did I add milk teas? Because milk teas is becoming a trend, especially here in the Philippines. I think it started in Thailand or Taiwan. Thai milk tea? Yeah. I think Thai milk tea was one of the first thing that made it popular. And people, if it's Instagrammable, so that can really become a trend. So people are using that, and they don't know that the milk teas that they're drinking are even not directly from teas. So we also have our own supply store for our cafe, and we buy stuff from the same provider, and there's a lot of packed and packed and packed of all the flavors of milk tea. That's why there's so many milk teas around in every corner, selling a very like legit tasting milk tea, like premium milk tea, only at the price of $1, like 50 pesos, 45 pesos even, and it's already very large. How can they can provide such very addicting drink in such a small price? Because it's actually made up of sugar, and the worst kind, there are those kinds of sweeteners that are even worse than sugar. And is that what they call magic sugar? I'm not sure what's the chemical component of magic sugar, but it's way sweeter than sugar, but it's way cheaper also than sugar, and it's one of those that are quite scary. So those are the danger lists. So if you're busy, don't make that as an excuse to just eat on those danger lists. Why? Because if there's no other food around, if there's no other healthy food around, you're actually doing better to your body. You're actually doing good to your body if you decide to fast instead of eating junk. Eating junk will just give your body more trash. If you fast, you're actually eliminating all those junk. So those are the mindset. Number 2 would be the caution list. So in our caution list, we divided this into the ones with insulin effect and the others that doesn't have an insulin effect but can have inflammatory effect. Okay, but in here I think there's somewhat an overlap with insulin effect. So those are the fruits, so we all know that all of those fruits, root crops and starchy foods. Again, if you already are at the top of your health, no more need to lose weight, no more need to improve on your health, you can eat a portion of these on the ones in the caution list, of course, but you just don't eat them all together all at once. Okay, and the grains, oats, wheat bread, I encounter this most of the time, especially with fruits. I tell my patient, try to avoid fruits, all of the fruits except berries and avocado, and then they will ask me, okay, how about banana? So I have to emphasize, banana is a fruit. Whether it's the Sabah banana, Tundan banana, what else? What else? The yellow one. All kinds of banana are still banana, and those are still fruits, okay? Grains, oats, wheat, and rice, even quinoa. So quinoa is somewhat of lower glycemic index, so it has lower overall sugar effect, but the insulin effect, especially on the amount that you will consume, because people sometimes when they replace rice with something else, they tend to eat it way more than rice because thinking that it's a little better than rice, so they end up eating it more. So again, mindset, amount matters. okay, and especially the other food stuff that you're eating it with. So those are having the insulin effect. So we are talking about this under the idea that it is on the safe side, okay? So we have this. I think this is where we differ from most of those who are advocating low carb and keto in general, because these foods are regularly keto approved, low carb approved, because they don't have insulin effect, they don't have sugar effect, but I categorize them under caution because they can have inflammatory effect, or if not, unnecessary and unnatural cravings that can lead to overeating for some other things that are still not helpful in the long run. So processed meats, even the canned tuna, canned fish, and all those. So I would put that on the unnatural cravings and inflammatory effect. Condiments and flavorings, okay? So all the sauces and dips, all the mayo, unless you make your own mayo. So I think I've posted that before in Life Without Rice. You can check on it. And the zero calories, sweeteners, and drinks. So why do I put that in the caution list? I think I've made a post about that, how it can actually destroy our brain's neural networks. So we tend to crave for things that we don't need. So it's something, we are promoting health, but not just on the physical, not just on the laboratory values, but also on the mental, okay? Because we feel that a lot of our food choices is mostly related to wrong mindset. So we are correcting that. And we don't need confounding variables like another sweet taste mimicking sugar but doesn't have the same effect as sugar, disrupting our progress. Okay? I think that's one of the most important things. And soy products are considered low carb. And of course, you can take some for those who are not sensitive to it. But if you have history of allergies, asthma, pains, aches and pains, so those are signs that your body is prone to inflammation. So I recommend that you avoid them. Sometimes it will appear as bloating for others. And in here, I would like to have it as a special announcement because this is like a favorite in Life Without Rice, and most groups, even if even the foreign doctors that we are all following, I think they post a lot of recipes with this. Peanuts, okay? So peanuts are both very easy to overeat, and so it can have both effect. It can have sugar insulin effect, and it's also very highly inflammatory, okay? So it's good that we can avoid that as well, okay? So how about with our safe list? So with our safe list in general, what we can just think is just eat the usual Pinoy foods, the usual meal preparations, just avoid the ones that we mentioned. So when I talk to my patient, if you're the cook, you can cook your regular food. It's just that you no longer need to cook rice. And you have to emphasize that noodles, pastas are not viand. They're not the main meal, okay? They're supposed to be lessened. So we have to avoid that as well. So what kind of food you can actually prepare ahead when you're very busy? So animal meat products, I know, I understand, it's hard to imagine how to have an easy go-to animal meat products that you can eat, especially others who are telling me that they don't have a choice. They can only have processed meats because that's very easy to cook. But I don't believe so. So one tip that we do in our house whenever we buy a meat, so it's usually pork, beef, or chicken. So the moment we buy them, we already choose the cuts that are of bite size or easy to cook. So adobo cut, menudo cut, tapak cut, or tocino cut, but it's not marinated in tocino. It's just plain pork, but the cuts are in tocino so that it would be thin. So what we do is the moment it arrives at home, we boil them in water. So if this is your cooking ware, if the meat is until here, if this is your whole cooking ware, you put the meat about in this size, and you put your water only about half. So your water, you can add a little of vinegar. So from this part, maybe your vinegar would be around 1/6 or 1/7 in size. And then per kilo of meat, I usually put 1 tablespoon of salt per kilo of meat. And then I let that boil, okay, until boiling point, and then I turn it off. And then we can now cover it under the chiller. So it doesn't need to be at the freezer. So whenever we need, and we separate the water, and then we also separate the meat, and then it is so easy and flexible that whenever we want to fry something, we can just get it there, put it in the pan, put cocoa aminos or just direct salt and pepper, or if you want it somewhat grilled or somewhat cooked, fried in coconut oil, you can easily do so in 5 minutes time because it's already half cooked. Okay, that's one of the trick. If you want to have it with soup, you can take some from the soup that we have. So even if it has vinegar, but the vinegar will already be cooked, and once you put in a little all of the other spices, you will no longer feel the vinegar because the vinegar will help get the meaty parts, the langsa of the meat, and also it will help preserve the meat. So it can stay there. Sometimes it can stay there for a week under the chiller part, not the freezer part, and it's still good because it's already cooked. So the salt, the vinegar will add to the flavor, but it will not alter the taste, and at the same time it will help preserve your meat. So that is one of the very things that makes our life easier. So we can just do our groceries with meats once a week, and then after the moment they arrive at our house, we can just cook them in an hour or two and then store them, and we have like feels like unlimited supply of 5 to 10 minute easy to cook meat anytime during the whole week. And we also have fresh produce. So the usual favorites would be pechay or bok choy. Sometimes we limit our cabbage because cabbage, unless you know that it's you who grew that cabbage, but most cabbage are really soaked in fertilizers. So there's so much fertilizers in it that is already embedded within the meat of the cabbage that washing and even cooking cannot totally destroy that. So we try to minimize. Of course, you can still eat, but you just make sure you try to consider that. And for those who are fond of eating rice, so I think there are so many things that you can learn from our members of Life Without Rice group. You just check the word cauli rice and you will have a lot of options. It's usually grated ahead for 1 week meal prep. It's usually done placed in microwavables containers, plastic containers that you can easily saute. You can easily like make sinangag, and also what else, fried cauli rice. There's garlic cauli rice, then all those. Okay, so those are the very easy things that you can do. And of course, as much as we want to be varied, but we also understand that one of the easiest food that we can bring anytime anywhere are eggs. So if you're on the go, you can have boiled eggs, but you can also bring scrambled eggs or omelette. So omelette, once you're already used to Life Without Rice, you actually don't need so much recipes. As long as your refrigerator is filled with low carb food products, vegetables, animal and plant-based products, you can just mix them all and you know you're safe because you don't need to count the carbohydrates, you don't need to count the calories, you don't need to count the sugar in it because it's all low carb, and you can mix and match. You can like make a Mongolian style rice bowl without the rice. You can have all the flavors that you want. And one thing that can make our Life Without Rice journey exciting is you invest on seasoning, the natural ones. So a little cumin, paprika, cayenne pepper. You can also have Italian seasoning. So actually, even just a plain egg, even just a plain scrambled egg, you can put Italian seasoning in it, and you can already have that restaurante taste and flavor and aroma. So those are just the simple tweaks that you can do. So another baon, another on the go for the busy bees in case you are very busy, is actually nuts. You just make sure that it's not peanuts. Okay, so Brazilian nuts, pecan, macadamia, walnut, almonds. Okay, pistachio, cashew is somewhat high carb, so you can take that, but also you have to be very mindful. But be careful. You have to consider that whenever you take nuts, and also another favorite would be chicharron mushroom. Okay, so mushroom chicharron or mushroom cracker. So that's like purely proteins. But you have to consider whenever you take nuts, you have to consider your overall protein intake. I usually see patients having low carb, practicing low carb for so long, but with very elevated uric acid. And their problem is usually they're all on low carb, but they can overeat their meat, red meat, and nuts. So between red meat and nuts, I see more uric acid elevation and effect with plant-based proteins as compared to meat. Okay, but it will depend again from person to person. Others will have more effect when it comes to meat. So far, with my experience and with my limited experience, of course, because I'm still young. Okay, so with my limited experience, I have seen elevated uric acid even from people who are avoiding meat, but instead they're munching on nuts. So just be aware. So the safe nuts quantity would be like a handful, and I always say a handful that is a closed fist handful, not an open fist or not semi-open fist. So a close open fist, and if you can take that, only 2 to 3 times a week. Okay, so that's 2 to 3 times a week only of nuts. And if you can't control that, like me from myself, I love nuts, so sometimes I cannot feel satisfied with just one, so I can usually have 3 of this. But whenever I take that, I remember my overall protein intake. It's not okay to keep on eating nuts and keep on eating proteins and keep on eating eggs, because that would be so much protein that you don't need, especially that I'm not still physically active. But of course, just wait. I will be physically active soon. I hope. So, yes, those are the things that are the basic things that you can do. You just have to be creative. And the cheese and dairies, if you are already at the top of your health, you can incorporate that. But you also have to somewhat limit it, just like the nuts, because it can still be inflammatory. Especially for men, the cheese and dairies, it can lower your testosterone. And sometimes it can give you, I don't want to scare you, but it was shown to give you feminine features. So a soft face, a rounded feature, and then man boobs. So if you are fond of eating milk, cheese, and dairy products, try to see if you have man boobs. So that might be a good motivation for you if you want to eliminate that. Anyway, those are the things. But if you're already making sure, another on the go foods that you can munch on would be sticks. It's like vegetable sticks, so slices of cucumber, slices of carrots in moderation, slices of singkamas or Mexican turnip or jicama, sometimes like that. So it's singkamas in Filipino, so you can have slices of that. If you have a kitchen in your office, so you can bring the fresh thing and you chop it there. But for an easy goer, you can easily stack them. You just make sure that you consume them in 24 hours, because most of the time they can easily get spoiled or sometimes not that crunchy, especially if you include the soft part, the inner pulp, the pulp of the cucumber. So usually I don't like that part, so I usually just take the hard part, the outer part, the white part of the cucumber. And you can make your own low carb dressing, low carb mayonnaise. Because did you know, even the favorite low carb QP, is that QP? QP mayo is actually made of soy oil. Okay, because soy is the only somewhat low carb that doesn't freeze, that doesn't have any distinct taste, unlike olive oil that can have a strong flavor sometimes. And especially for coconut oil, you cannot use it as mayo, because it will be frozen whenever you put it in the refrigerator. And if you want to have a longer shelf life, you have to put it in the refrigerator. Otherwise, you can make your own using, I've done that. I made my own mayo using coconut oil, but you have to consume it in 2 days, 3 days at most, but safely in just a day, because it's raw egg that you will be consuming. Otherwise, if you put it like what I did, I used mayonnaise, homemade mayonnaise using coconut oil and real egg, and I put it in the refrigerator. So it turned out to be like frozen coconut oil. So it's so hard. You cannot spread it like the usual mayo. So it's important that you know what are your safe foods. So chicharon is of course low carb, especially if you know that it's cooked in lard or using its own oil. And as much as we love pork and cholesterol, again, we have to emphasize for those who are still arriving in this episode, our cholesterol, if it's eaten too much, is also not good. So ideally, whenever you take a fatty meal, whenever you take a heavy cholesterol loaded saturated fats oil that everybody is warning us about, although there's really no fear in that so much when it comes to too much sugar, when it comes to no sugar intake together with that, but we can also become on the safer side, because by idea and by nature we usually consume omega-3 and omega-6 on an equal ratio. So if we are not eating the good fats and we are just eating the regular fats, which is mostly omega-6, then we can easily overdo that. And if you are not physically active, you are not weightlifting, doing strenuous physical activities, that could end up as very, very high cholesterol that you don't need. Okay? So there's lean mass hyperresponders. So those are usually typically men who are looking very, very lean, minimal body fat percentage, but they have a hyper responsiveness when it comes to fat. So they are shown to have very, very high cholesterol and very high HDL. HDL is just okay. LDL is very high. Sometimes they can also have high triglycerides. Okay, triglycerides can be high or low. Okay, so we are losing time. We are actually beyond the 15 minutes past our intended time. It's because we also started late. So if we have to remember a little, we can summarize it in idea that as long as you know what are the safe food, you can easily prepare ahead. And if you are too busy, you are okay, of course, to order from time to time from whichever food that there is, because there will always be that low carb food alternative, or at least what we call as the lesser evil, even if at a major fast food chain. Of course, again, we are not promoting fast food here, but in case that's the only thing that's available, and of course we cannot say that everybody can just say no and I will just fast. So if you feel like you need to eat and you don't have any other choice, so of course you can eat fast food. So you have to know what not to eat there: the fries, the bread, the rice. So you can have the whole chicken. You just try to remove the breading, the extra breading that you surely know are made of flour. And of course the bread, if you can do away with the sauces that are most likely sugar loaded, and of course if you can have just the patty, just the beef, that's a lot better. So the idea is, you must know what is the safe list, and whenever you are, wherever you are, wherever you may be, you'll always know what to eat, when to eat, and what is safe for you. And once you are actually fat adapted, you can easily delay your food. Fasting even longer than your regular day-to-day schedule can easily be done. And the idea that you don't have to really make sure that you're eating every day, twice a day, 3 times a day, that you can be safe and you can even benefit from fasting from time to time, that is already very, very much liberating. Okay, so we already emphasized on the danger list, on the caution list. So what you can think of right now is knowing that as long as you know your safe foods, as long as you know that you are okay to fast, and as long as you have the necessary electrolytes for you to keep on going, your food, the worry of your food is actually not a thing. Just like I posted last Monday that I fasted for 41 hours. It was actually not intended that I will really fast for Monday. But it was just that we've been so busy that we haven't had any time to cook or prepare our food, that when I finished the live episode, then it was already way past beyond my usual eating time. So I decided to just not eat and wait for the next day, and that happened, and I think it can happen again anytime soon. So that's it for today, because we are already running out of time. And thank you so much. I can only see hello, Sir Jazzy Torres. Thank you very much for being here. And Mel and Car, hi from Ireland. We have a friend. We actually have one admin who is also from Ireland. Hello, Amabel, and everyone. So I'm so happy that you are all here. I hope you can attend our masterclass this coming Saturday. So that's going to be day 1. So we have 4 Saturdays. So we have 4 sessions of around 6 hours per Saturday. So April 10, April 17, 24, and May 1. So it's going to be a 4 Saturdays dedicated for low carb, fasting, and healing. And it is open for beginners. If you have read the book, so you know that it's very beginner friendly for those who are beginners. But for those who are already pros, you can just know that it is there. It is very understandable, but you can still find value in it. And that's what I want also with the masterclass. So it's an open masterclass. For we have veterans fasters, we have veterans low carbers, we have researchers, we have doctors who are practicing low carb, and we also have newbies, and we also have beginners, and we also have one who doesn't even have any idea but want to enroll to finally make the most out of her journey to heal. Okay, so she's not just looking into one-time consultation, but she's now enrolling for her to decide which one is best for her. So you will be given options, you will be given the necessary tools that you need, you will be given the necessary confidence for you to start your own journey, and hopefully you can help others as well, starting from your loved ones, starting from your circle, from your inner circle, and then make it bigger and bigger, in order for us to make this free, this sustainable, this natural lifestyle as popular and natural, and really something that will be hopefully become a norm. So before I end here, I want to tell you that they actually project that as we go over the years in our evolution, we tend to have a longer lifespan. Okay, and they projected that by around 2050 something, our lifespan can really be more than 100. So if we can reach that point, maybe we can even reach even longer years. And the discovery of low carb nutrition, and the current growing acceptance when it comes to fasting, could be just the key for us to reach that point. Okay, so each of us knowing this, we can be part of this, and we can really start enjoying our life without rice, without carbs. And you're always welcome to join our other Facebook group community, Low Carb Feasting and Fasting Community. So I'll see you again this Friday for another live Q&A episode. So I will entertain all the questions that you might be having in here that I cannot answer, especially those who are commenting. I'm so sorry. We are usually fully booked. I usually don't have time to browse on the comment section, even if my name is tagged. So by Friday, I hope we can answer more of those questions. Okay, and if you can't, you're very much welcome to join our masterclass. Just send Alvin Chua Rojo a message. That's my brother and also the event coordinator, so that you will be part of the official list. Thank you very much. Always remember to fast as long as you can. And if you still have fats to lose, of course, and the moment you eat, stay low carb, so that we will all stay safe. Maraming salamat po. Hello, Mandru. Congratulations in your 24-hour fast while you're on quarantine. I'll see you here. Advance happy birthday. Bye-bye.